Right, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the afternoon of day 3 at WASD here at the PC Games End Theatre. For our next talk, our next speaker, we are very pleased to welcome back to the stage from this morning Joe Brammer, the CEO of Bulkhead Interactive. If you were around for our talk on flexible working this morning, you will have heard that Bulkhead has grown massively, even in the teeth of the pandemic over the last couple of years. So he's going to give us a talk about how that process has happened and what it's been like to go from an indie studio of just 6 people up to a massive headcount of 100 working on all sorts of exciting projects. So hopefully something interesting for any aspiring devs or current devs to take away. So please welcome to the stage Joe Brammer.
Hi. I've only just found out there's a laser button on this, so I'm resisting that if you see me fiddling with it. So I have to do a little disclaimer. I'm extremely candid. I will undoubtedly get in trouble from someone at some point for this. I accidentally, deliberately swear a lot. I think hopefully there's really interesting stuff I've got to say. We'll find out, I guess. If those of you who don't know who we are, and it's not like you should. About 7 or 8 years ago, I'm 29 now, and we basically left university in University of Derby, which is like a shithole in the Midlands, and we basically set up an indie studio. There were 6 of us at university, then we left, and honestly, there was, I was looking for jobs as like a junior artist, and there just wasn't any, so they hate it when I say this, I lied on a form to apply to be in the Idea Xbox program. It had just come out, and I was at university and I'd seen it, and I'd gone, I'll just fill that out, whatever. And I lied, and I was like, yeah, working with loads of devs from Lionhead, they're all working with me. They believed us, and sent us 2 Xboxes. So I was like 21, sitting with 2 Xbox dev kits, like, what do I do with this? So we downloaded the FIFA demo, and started playing that. And then eventually we decided we should probably do something with this, and I said to some mates, like, do you want to make a game? So basically there was no yeah, we're going to make an indie studio and this is what we're going to do. There was no jobs, so we got left with, ironically, the complete freedom to just go do something. We didn't have some big plan on this is where we're going. The result of that is basically every step we've made, every decision we've made, at the time was just what we thought was the right thing to do. Doing a talk now in hindsight, it's it's a bit different. Like, oh, why did we do that? But really, it wasn't this big strategic plan. We're gonna make an indie studio because we really want to make this one game that I love, and it's Indie Game the Movie, and I make a game about my fucking feelings. That didn't happen. We wanted to make games, so we started making games. So in 2015, there was 6 of us, and we had a tiny office in the summer, and the window opened about this much, and that was great. And it was basically, 6 lads in a really sweaty, tiny room. Amazing. We basically, we had this Xbox dev kit, and we started making a robot football game, basically exactly like Rocket League, but we thought it was shit, so we threw it away. And basically, it wasn't going very well. We sacked that off and said, no one's doing anything on Unreal Engine 4. At the time, it had only been out a month or something. So we were like, let's just do that and make everything really shiny. So that's what we did. So we took a big gamble on this engine we've never used before. At the time, you still had to pay monthly for it. We just put it out there, and we just started using it. We didn't have an animator or a character artist, so we just decided, okay, we need to make a game about a bodiless, characterless, no moving parts person, so we called him a spirit, and you went around solving puzzles, right? Really simple. We just worked with what we had, and we had, I think, 4 environment artists and 2 programmers, so that's what we made. Lots of environments that were really shiny, and it stuck out, right? Our game looked good. It was crap, but it was good enough, and we got to the market fast enough that there was enough players that the price was okay. It was justifiable at the time. And for that, it was fine. A few deals with Xbox later, we were going to these shows, and we basically took every opportunity we had. If I'm completely honest, we were lucky. There was a lot of luck involved. There are many indie devs that are way better than us that didn't get it. I would argue because they strove for perfectionism, and you just can't do that. But also, we took every opportunity. We did everything. We were always at the events just trying to be there, chat to people. And it worked out. But it was a bit of a fluke. There are better games that fail, especially these days. So after we did that, we built that on no money, stupid hours, would never do that again, fun in hindsight. We hired 2 people from university, minimum wage, and we made the Turing test. Now this, still, somewhat annoyingly, 6 years on, is still our best fucking game. So the rest of this talk's pretty like how we fucked up. So the reality is the Turing test is really, really good. Why we haven't been sued by Alan Turing's family yet, I don't know. But hopefully it'll stay that way. We made this game. It was basically a first-person puzzle game like the last one, but we did it better. So we took the thing we knew how to make, made it better. Now, I don't play first-person puzzle games. When I do, I just look like an idiot. So it was great going to events and showing that off because nobody wanted to look like an idiot, so no one would play them. But it did really well. And actually, despite it being a considerably better game than our previous one, first week sold way less copies because the market was shifting so rapidly that people were just taking a bit more time, waiting for sales. Game Pass was sort of on the horizon. So that actually, it did better in the long run for years. It still sells copies now. But at the time, it wasn't. I keep pointing at this. You can't see that. I forgot that. At the time, it didn't do that well at launch compared to our previous game. So we were like, oh, that's not good. It went on to make loads, and it was fine. And thank God it did, because in the middle of that, we'd gone, what do we really want to do? We're just here making enough to make another game, to make a little bit of money to make another game. That's not fun. It's not really why we're here. It's a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of pain. And we went, we want to make a World War II multiplayer shooting game that's like an old school shooter. Every lunch when we made Turing test, we were playing Call of Duty 2 with the rifles. And this is where I show my age. And it was really, really fun. Those are the best memories from making Turing test, was playing Call of Duty 2 at lunch. So we did that and pitched this Kickstarter, and we said, right, screw it. In the middle of this game, we're going to spend 3 months, 3 of us, make a mini prototype and a Kickstarter, launch it out and see what people say, because I think the opportunity is now. Had we released the game then, it would have done very, 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 very well. But we did a Kickstarter, which made enough to make all the publishers that are here to support you as indies just swoon around us and just throw the world at us. By the world, I mean like 50 quid. And they basically came to try and help out. Luckily, Turing Test made so much money that in the end, I think the Kickstarter made $320K after taxes and fees and that kind of thing. That's $250K, $245. The publisher gave us nothing, more or less. And we put in about £900,000. So good job for buying Turing Test. But 20 people, this is where we start to feel a bit of pain, right? Our contracts were a joke. I'd written them. So, yeah. And basically, they just said, like, turn up at work, do your job, you're going to pay this much, you dick. Like, there was more or less, there was nothing protective for anyone in there. You would arguably be more safe without a contract. But that's the time, like, everyone had this clear goal of, we really want to make this game. We're still playing Call of Duty 2 at lunch. We're still doing that as a group, and we all love it. So everyone's got this clear vision of what the game is going to be. You don't need a meeting. Were you there last lunch? We were playing, make fucking that. Do it. So that was easy, right? Then someone gets sick one day and is like, oh, I'm not coming in, I'm ill. And we're like, oh, do we pay you? So we've never worked a job ever. We've never had a job. No idea how any of that works. It sounds so stupid, but we're so focused on releasing the game, and we're taking care of our staff by making sure we get pizza for everyone when the release comes around. it's hard. Like, we're so focused on that, and everyone's so focused and young on the same goal. Like, generally there's no issues. But now, we're hiring people. We've hired a few people who want to know how long their notice period is. And the best anecdote I have, and I hope he's not here, is someone said to me one day, "Can I have a 3-month appraisal?" And I was like, "The fuck's an appraisal?" I still hate appraisals now, but I remember him saying, "Can we go to the coffee shop and just talk about my progression?" I was like, "Why?" I completely ignorant of me, and we're pretty good at that now. But the anecdote still stands. But basically, at 20 people, these are employees now. They're not all getting benefited from the game releasing and that kind of thing. So then Battalion comes out, does well, depending on who you ask, and it was number 2 on Twitch, right? That's great. Game wasn't designed for that. It was designed to be number 25 on Twitch. And it basically just couldn't handle it. Servers crashed. Google screwed us up. Not a big fan of Google. And that basically happened. And, that was really difficult. We'd kind of hit our peak. We can't work this hard anymore. We had, between these times, you're going from 20 to now 30 people. And 30 people is where it's like, right, these contracts need to change. We didn't take on an HR person, but the contracts had to change. So they had to have some stability in there. People needed to know that they were going to get a raise, or, we just did everything statutory because it was already there for you. That's not fair. And, these people we worked really closely with were our friends, so we had to take care of them better. And for a long time, we were not able to differentiate between being friends and employees, with probably up to around 40, 50 people. So then we got given some money. Say, "Oh, you made Battalion off of nothing, really. What if we give you some more money? Could you go and make a survival game on early access with a few people?" No, is the answer apparently. If you haven't heard of this game, it's been cancelled. It was really, really good. It was like DayZ, but with NPCs. It was basically ready to go to early access, and we, decided to. We had to cancel it in the end and go in a different route. I can't go into too many details about it, but basically it was towards the end of sort of the indie boom kind of thing, and the reason this point was hard, because we had pitched this game saying we can do it like this, we can do it in our old ways, cheap, whatever, no appraisals. But those people that haven't had these appraisals and attention and care for ages, they're like, well, where am I going in my career? How am I getting better? They're wondering what they're doing with their lives. And we're like, you're making this game, obviously, but people are so much more than that. And it's not that we didn't know that, it's that we didn't have time to focus on that. Or I didn't even realize that was what my job was. I didn't even know that. So this was a particularly painful time, and this is where if you don't have mentors, and at which point we left university, and we've got to here over sort of 5 years, and we've had no mentors the whole way through. I've got basically no one better than me at what I'm doing, telling me what to do. And if you go to a publisher or something, it's easy for them to say, "Oh, we know this is what you should do," that kind of thing. They're not running a business. They work for a publisher. They haven't set it up from the ground up. How do they know what it's like trying to pay the bills at the end of the month and pass a milestone to make sure that that person can afford to pay their bills? They don't know what they're talking about, but they will tell you that they do. All of them, by the way. And ultimately, that's a big learning point that I got from the end of that, is you are very much on your own. And we were naive, to be honest. I was very naive and trusting. And that's the learning point that we figured out we're in the industry. And this is the point where 50 people, you need to start getting some kind of structure and support. A lot of people will say this earlier as well. So then we decided we're not doing that game anymore. We're going to go into co-development and do our own. So we're going to work on a AAA game. That's not it. This is just a bit of concept art. We're going to work on a AAA game, and we're also going to work on stuff we're really passionate about, which is we're going to do what we did last time. We're going to take our bad game and do a better version of it. So we started working on this thing called Pro Mod. At this point, we don't know what we want to work on. We just know that we're really good at making great feeling shooting games. I would say bar Call of Duty and Apex, we're getting up there as one of the best studios who do that. We're just obsessive about it. Crap at service, so you'll never play our games with people. But it does feel good when you play our games. So we just started going, right, let's make this bit as good as we can. Let's get feedback from the community, and that's what we've done, right? So at this point now, multiple projects, 75 people. This is in lockdown. We're winging it. We're always winging it. And your bosses are as well, by the way. This, for us, is a big deal. We realize we've not got enough middle management. It's crazy, but we've not got enough people making decisions and taking the responsibility or accountability for those decisions. And then I've got to give up control of that. Don't know if you know, I'm kind of a controlling person. I think most people in these roles are, but over the last 2 years, been able to give that up and see how talented some of the people are that work with us and how responsible they can be. But they had to learn it the same way I did over that 6-year period. They had to learn it in 6 months, which they did, and they've started to. So that brings us here to where we are now. We're 100 people. We've stopped working on this prototype we're working on for a game called ProMod, and I'm starting to wonder what my job is, kind of thing. I got here because I decided to lie on an Xbox forum and make some indie games with some mates, and now I'm in charge of 100 people. The way I look at it, their families, and I'm responsible for their families and their kids and their life goals, not to be confused with their career goals. And we decided to make this game, War Dogs: King of the Hill. It's really, really good, and basically, we just started it from scratch. We threw away all of our old tech and all of the old stuff we'd made, stopped building on top of it, and went, let's start from scratch, let's use the knowledge, keep the people, care about the people, and that's the bit that really matters. Not the tech, it's the people and what's inside their heads. So we make everyone wear helmets to work. No, we don't. But basically, this is where we've got to, we're 100 people. So that's our journey, and it's quite important to kind of explain that journey before we go into these next bits. Well, I didn't clear that twice. Okay. So basically, it's definitely my fault, don't worry. So basically, I just wanted to cover what our values are. We didn't know who we were. We just kept, we need another person to do this job. We need another person to do that job. So we just kept hiring people in the right place, get a manager here, do that. We got quite good at that, right? Putting a manager here, manage them. How do they want to get better? We're quite good at that stuff. We're very good at being candid with each other. So when we hire another 50 people on top of already 50 people in lockdown where you can't see them every day, go for a drink and chat and do board game night, and you can't do all that stuff, you hire some right weirdos. Like, I'm kidding. Everyone's weird in the industry. But really, you do hire people that are not the right cultural fit. And by cultural fit, I don't mean the way Riot mean it, or Activision. I mean the way people don't value the way we make games and how we do it. So this list here was something we came up with. Like, what does it mean to be a really good fit at Bulkhead? So the first one is this honesty and being extraordinarily candid. People hate it, get in trouble all the time for it. There's a way to be candid that I've learned, or I'm learning-ish. And basically, we hate it when we have meetings with other game developers or studios where they just skirt around the issue. They're just not talking about the thing that needs to be talked about. So we get in trouble all the time for upsetting someone. But internally, we're really good about these ways of talking to each other, having debates, having arguments, and having a short-term memory on how you felt about it, cutting out the emotions of or the negative emotions of that conversation. So we're also like fearless. This is something we didn't know we were. These things here, we've only come up with this list in the last few months, right? Before that, we were doing these things, but we didn't know how to boil it down. We didn't know that we were different to other game developers until we started working with other ones. To that point, we'd been on our own, locked in a room making Battalion for ages. We didn't get how anyone else did anything. So when we found out we were fearless, it wasn't really like, you hire a random person that can work on your game. They're not just going to be like completely fearless. But for me, if we hire a AAA, we had a guy from a pretty big AAA studio come and join us. He said, I don't think I'm like that. And I was like, you left this massive AAA studio to come and work for us. You've already shown you can be that, like, because we're a fucking risk. And he, he came over and he was like, are you? And I was like, no. But, he basically, he saw that, I was like, you've taken that risk, so what's the next thing you need to do? And he's like, well, I think we should change this. I was like, why? And he's like, because it's just a bit limiting. And that came to like, okay, so we don't like boxing ourselves in and creating rules that don't exist. Like, oh, we can't do that because someone else did it another way once. I don't care. We want to be curious, right? I think everyone who's a game developer is like interested in something. It might be something really minute and I want to do this better. Or it might be something really big, like let's make this game or go this direction. We want to ask those questions. If you haven't got it ready, we're really passionate. We have big debates, big arguments. The new way of us dealing with that is trying to identify that you can be passionate and be quiet kind of thing. You can be really passionate about something and not be the loudest person in the room. So for us, it's about trying to get that individual to speak up. The reason I'm going through this in like an indie to AAA, 100 people kind of talk, is because this is the bit we cannot let go of. And that came down to us being decisive and being able to make our own decisions. We were accidentally really good at that. Just going, right, we're going this way, come on. And if it's wrong, we'll make another decision and change again. Yes, you could plan for days and come up with stuff, but hey, a couple of years ago, didn't know there'd be a pandemic. A couple of months ago, didn't know Ukraine would get invaded. So here we are. Stop trying to predict the future and we just get on with it. Being decisive doesn't just mean picking a direction. It means owning it. When it goes wrong or right, all right, my bad, it was wrong. So what? Move on. These are the things that, honestly, even 6 months ago, we'd almost entirely lost this. We were burnt out. We were wondering, like, how the hell do you manage 100 people? If anyone knows, by the way, please come and tell me. And, we got to the point where we were like, we absolutely need to define who we are. So when we go to do these appraisals, which I love and go to all the time now, we have this kind of guide for, like, how do you decide who's good and who's bad? And Netflix did this amazing deck on like their culture and their values, right? It's a little bit weird because it kind of says like the people who get promoted are the only people who do this. There are plenty of other great values that people bring to a team that aren't on this list. So it isn't about being all 5 of them. I'm not necessarily all 5 of them, but I can tell you there's people who are more bulkhead than I am who work for us. Yours don't have to be the same as this. If you're an indie dev running a studio or you're trying to grow something or anything, like, it sounds very American, but really staying true to what that identity is, that is core. Remembering, like, why did you get into this? What's the reason that you got into game dev? For me, and for the original 6 people, it was working with our mates. So the way we keep that atmosphere is we throw absolutely massive team socials every quarter, right? Even if we drag people to these events that have never been to one before, we throw massive ones, right? We have crazy games that I always play rugby, and we try and steal the PG version of rugby culture into the office, which is great. Basically, the social atmosphere, the camaraderie, and the teamwork aspect was the most important bit to us. Working with our friends. So if there's someone who we don't like at the office who doesn't like us kind of thing, and they're creating a culture we don't want to be a part of. If we're going to have to do this and work extra to do it, it might as well be fucking fun. So that's kind of how we ended up with these values. This is the most important thing if you're growing. You have to boil it down, though. You have to simplify it to one thing, and that was really hard. You'll come up with some terrible phrases. We managed to boil ours down to a quote. I believe originally it was an interpretation from a Gandhi quote, and it came down to be the change you want to see. Specifically, it's about you. And, people leave AAA to come and work for us because they can have a creative impact, if it's a production impact, make a change. The problems they see, they can go and solve. That's what we want them to do. And we boiled down Bulkhead's entire culture from that very first game where there were no jobs out there, and we decided, let's just go and make some jobs, all the way to 100 people. That is still the same thing. solving problems, getting on with it, picking a direction, all of that boils down to being the change that you want to see. So this is a quick tool that is very segueing on, because I'm sure I'm running out of time, that we've used. There's holes to poke in it, but it's really good, quick way to communicate. I apologize for how yellow and aggressive that is. Exactly what your game is going to be. So when you're making a game, regardless of a 6-person game, 100-person game, defining where you're going to be is really useful, because I tell you what, creatives don't like cutting corners. Cutting corners is the only way you're going to make an indie game really good, unless you're one of the few gods out there that can do it on their own. So ultimately, at the top, you got The Last of Us. Opposite end of cheap, opposite end of speed. That takes forever, really expensive, great game, fine. Down here we've got Flappy Bird. That one's annoying. Made a lot more money than I'll ever make, but it looks pretty low quality, but it does what it says on the tin. So they went straight, just make it cheap, release it. Fine, perfectly acceptable strategy. This one's going to annoy some people. Fortnite, specifically the Battle Royale bit. Now this is the most indie fucking attitude ever. They saw, arguably before it came out, a Battle Royale game and went, we've got this shooter here with building, that's pretty cool. Let's just build a Battle Royale, put it out there. From when they had that idea in inception to release for a AAA studio, that's pretty fast. It was not cheap because they're Epic, they're expensive, they're a big team. Like, it was definitely not cheap, but it was very fast for them. And using that, well, we've already got this thing, let's not build a whole new game around it, let's just take this and modify it. Half people, they don't know that Fortnite was even a thing before Battle Royale, right? You just call it Fortnite now. So this is that kind of quality matrix. So the first game we did, right at the bottom, right in the sweet spot for indie between speed and cheap. Now, if your first game, like, just be clear, cheap and speed doesn't mean bad. I think you've seen on that triangle all good games in their own right, but where you land, it's important to have that mentality. Are we trying to be cheap? Is that our preference? Are we trying to be fast? If you're trying to be fast, fine. You're going to have to hire a lot more people to be faster, kind of thing. Knowing where you land on this is really important. Second game, we basically just went, let's up the quality a bit, right? It's moving us away from the cost, but fine, just up the quality. Oops. Third game, we went, well, we really want to do something new. It was the quality's moved up on a much smaller game. The second we expanded that game, we had to go back. We focused on speed because the only way for us to make a game of Battalion's size was basically to do it as quick as possible to keep the budget down, right? Get it out there, while people are talking about it. So we downed the quality. Arguably, that might be a mistake. But this is where publishers should be helping you up that quality. So if they're not bringing money to the table, kick them out the door. Icarus, who wanted to up the quality on something we'd done before, keep the speed. Somebody wanted it to be a massive AAA game without putting any money in. Fine. Not got a chip on my shoulder at all. And this is where War Dogs is, right? It's ridiculous for us to try and be a top-tier quality Last of Us game, but also, I don't know if you guys are aware, I'm sure most of you are, cost of games rapidly going down, and the price of development rapidly going up. I don't know if you want to be on that top scale anymore, so maybe the industry is going towards the way that we work. That indie mentality blended with AAA quality. Maybe we can find that perfect balance in the middle. Maybe not. But if you compare the cost of those other games, the speeds, that kind of thing, we kind of land right in that middle point. So that's where we're trying to be. Instead of making a game with 200 people, can you make a game with 150 people? Maybe that's possible. Maybe that's possible by giving more people autonomy and letting more people make decisions. And when it goes wrong, own that decision and just, it went wrong, fine, let's fix it. Don't point people out. So this one I stolen from a thing called Griner's growth phases. So basically that first phase, indie, you're going through your founders, your creatives, you just, let's get it done and go get it. That part is easy, it's really fun, but you got no money and you're broke. The second bit is through direction. Now this is where Battalion, we cheated because we went, let's just make COD 2. It was really easy to do direction. Every lunch, play this game, see it, everyone knows where we're going. Don't have to worry about anything else because everyone knows what it is. This one sucks. Growth through delegation, now you've got to actually go make something a bit more unique. You're not just copying another game, you've got to go doing something on our own. That's really hard because now you've got to do something you've never done before, which is manage your people, trust them, and give away the control. Every time you've been an indie dev for 4 or 5 years now, and you go in, I could do that faster, I could do it better. Why are they doing it like that? And you have to let them do it and try and help them and coach them, and nobody tells you that's your job. So you kind of have to figure it out on your own unless you've got that mentorship around you. So these are only the first 3, and I'm just going to do those for now. But basically, once you get through that delegation point, and if you do that last one really well, you'll be fine. There's loads of great game ideas. There's loads of great ones. It's about the execution at this point. It's about managing that cost and that triangle. It's about managing that. There's loads of good ideas. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just a person telling you my experience. If we had listened to what our lecturers said, they would have said, don't do Xbox, it's too hard. Make a mobile game. That would have gone really well, a bunch of students making a mobile game. You don't need to listen to people around you. The secret about, my mum's a teacher. She made me read every book under the sun, and I didn't like reading at all. And then I found books I liked, and something clicked with me when you realize that the management books and the GDC talks and this stuff, people coming up here, they're just opinions, often backed with a lot of experience. But the amount of times these books go, oh, we don't do that anymore. The amount of times that happens, it's insane. So if you know your situation better than anyone else, so trust your decision for it. Don't take this as gospel. Not that any of you would, but there's a load of information out there that looks like a great idea, but it might not work for you. It might not apply for you. Your people are different. Everyone's unique, and every team is unique. But ultimately, great games are made by great teams, not just people, okay? The team is what matters. So at this point, I open up some questions. Anyone wants to ask me anything, you're more than welcome to. Shoot, I think the microphone's here, I think.
Hello. When it comes to hiring, particularly when you're rapidly expanding, how do you balance your time between, say, the hiring process and interviewing hundreds of people and actually getting other stuff done?
Oh, work way more, unfortunately, the answer.
No.
Well, it depends. Like, you want to take on more risk and hire a talent acquisition manager, do that. We only managed to afford that in 2021. We prioritized it in 2021, that's a better way to say it. Again, it's kind of one of those points about what feels right for you. In terms of me personally prioritizing it, I'll go for these really big hires we need, and I'll chase down people I really want, and that's where I'll put my time. But it comes back to delegating again, Have your leads do some recruitment. They need to understand reading people. The problem is they're going to hire people that don't fit your values, so you have to have the values set up so they can look at the values and go, I think they did at least 2 of these things, so it's probably worth hiring that person. But in terms of balancing the time, it's hard. It's really hard. But I'd nail down your values so that you can make it easier for others to do the hiring and know what you're looking for. That's probably the best way to do it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, God. I had a horrible question this morning from this gentleman.
I'm sure this is an easy one. And thanks for the talk and being so candid, Joe. To me, you've made or are making one of the most difficult steps, which is going from kind of one game at a time to multi-track, whatever it may be, in your case, a work-for-hire project and your own. How do you manage the conflicts of that? Do you want to put all your best people on one thing, or do people get pulled across when they're needed? How do you manage that? Thanks.
I think it's a key difference between the 2 projects is we're the lead dev on our own project, and we're not the lead dev on the AAA project, right? So we're helping, we do it their way. In terms of whether people go, I think there's people for instance, the AAA thing, a lot more structure. There are people who are prefer more structure. So they're probably never going to be a lead on a bulkhead project. But they might just love working at Bulkhead, love the culture, but they just want to make this really cool AAA thing. And that's fine. So it's also allowing that flexibility within those values. You don't have to be this perfect, super indie person. finding the leadership for those projects and making sure that the cultures don't bleed over, that's the biggest problem we had. Because there's some great learnings we've had from working on this, some things that were like, that is really cool, that we've taken on to our indie side, and that's been way better. But there's also some things that have come over that we haven't liked, some attitudes, some slower ways of working, right? So in the end, and that's actually only recently, the decision was we couldn't leave them alone to do it in their way. We actually had to get more invested and take ownership of it. So exactly how I just phrased it at the start, this is our project, this is not. We had to make the other one more our project and take more ownership. So we took a specific piece of that game and said, give us this. And I think the email actually said, fuck off and we'll deal with it. And they were like, great, cool, taking ownership. So we then put one of our indie people in charge or sort of overseeing it, but not doing the day-to-day management because we don't know how to do AAA games. I've got no idea. But we did make sure that there was a blend. It wasn't just AAA people this way and indie people this way, because you just end up with an indie project and a AAA project. The company we work with would definitely argue that we've influenced the project and how that works for the positive by bringing some of our indie mentality across. So blending that and trying to get in the middle of that triangle, I think applies to all the games we work on. Cool.
Hello. Thanks for sharing your story. May I ask you what your vision or your dreams were when you started in, I believe, 2015, and if that shifted or changed nowadays?
Does anybody still have dreams now? Oh, God.
Or a vision?
No, I think it comes back to wanting to work with my friends, right? That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with my friends. We loved making games together, and we just wanted to hire more friends. Became a problem when we kept hiring our friends who were kind of crap. So that honestly became the problem. We had to change, and then we started hiring some really good people. But we never gave up on the fact that you can have these really good people who you just don't like. I think the Navy SEALs do this thing where they're like, they've got the trust on one side, or talent on one side and trust on the other, trust basically being friends, more or less. So, you can have the talent super up here, but if you don't trust them, they're rubbish. So you're trying to get especially juniors to follow this diagonal path between the two. But for us, what the dream was, I think now, collectively in the studio, the sort of dream is to make a game worth being recognized for. We're known for Battalion and that game having server issues. We're not known for these really cool things. And I think we're past the kind of maybe a bit immature thing of just wanting to be known for the sake of it. And that does come with a lot of benefits and getting to the right parties and events you need to be at. But I think we're tired of that, and I'm quite happy to stand up here and swear and then say we're doing a 4-day work week because we want to. But ultimately, the dream is to work with our friends and make a game that stands out. That's really what we want to do.
Cool, thanks.
This might be a bit tall for me. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of also bring it back to when you were first starting up your company. Oh, thank you. To give it a bit of context, I've started up a company myself with some friends. How
Nice.
do you set up those boundaries between friendship and co-workers? Because people often say to me, the best way to lose friends is to work with them. And you said yourself that some of your friends you found they weren't very good and you had to sort of try and work with that or perhaps find different people.
I don't regret it, so that's probably worth mentioning. The people who've said that to you, have they ever started a company?
Yeah.
Okay, good. It's a good
I
start.
know a few people who,
Okay.
I talk with different
Yeah.
people who've started companies and they're working with friends, and a lot of them say it's difficult to work with people who you're friends with and to set up the boundaries between friendship and co-workers.
I'd say I even struggle with it now. I don't really have boundaries between the employees that I spend more time with, let's say. A lot of people have come in as an employee and ended up as friends. And it is super weird being in a friend group where everyone knows how much each other earns. And honestly, I don't have a good answer for you. My answer would be, don't worry about it till it's a problem. And then you deal with problem case by case basis. If you've got a friend who's horrifically racist, that's a different problem to just someone's a little bit lazy. So it's hopefully you don't have any of those friends. But I think yeah, don't overthink it. Just, I love working with my mates. Even though they're all idiots, I do love it. So I think, yeah, I would absolutely work with them all again and deal with the problems as they come.
All right, thanks very much.
No worries.
Hi.
Hey.
There was a period, it looks like, where you didn't actually release any games.
Oh.
How did you, like with the cancelled project you mentioned, how do you keep the lights on during that part?
I can only answer it to some degree. We didn't know at the time like how unique our skill set was. We're not going to make the most polished game. We're not going to make you a AAA console product. That's not our like skill set. But we are going to go into your project and say, that's shit, we should do this better. And that apparently, we didn't know, apparently that's like a really valuable thing. So our ability to be passionate and those, take those values and do them is quite valuable. So we were able to work on games and put cash away and keep paying people. And like, without going into too much of the detail, like, yeah, we've been co-deving on this project for 2 years. So you got almost 2 years working on a game that gets cancelled, and then almost 2 years working on it. It's 3.5 years, I think. So really, it's just we've just been working and getting paid monthly for it. But we get paid quite well. We're quite valuable, and we have great partners. And yeah, it's there's always a way for sure. I think it's the Harvey Specter thing from Suits, where he says like, what do you do when someone puts a gun to your head? And there's just like a million things you can do. You can hit the gun, you can fight him, you can beg, there's loads of things you can do, especially when you remove your ego out of it. So yeah, it's tough though.